What is up, everyone? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we will be reacting to NASCAR and the Dam of Legitimacy. Somebody had requested this video, so we're going to react to it. I'm very much looking forward to getting into it. But before we do that, make sure you subscribe. Over half of you that watch my videos still not subscribed. Just hit the bell, it takes 2 seconds, and if you'd like to become a member of my channel and receive exclusive perks, you can also do that by hitting the join button down below. Right, here we go.
A lot of people have said that the appeal of sports is that it showcases the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. It is a grand Baroque display of the highest of highs and the lowest of lows of the human condition.
Yep.
Sure, you could experience the same thing in a good movie or TV show, but the realm of sports has one big thing going for it. It's real. None of it is scripted. There's no one pulling the strings to make things happen. These are real people and real stories playing out in real time right in front of your very eyes. Therefore, the entire draw of sports relies on its legitimacy. A dam is a strong and imposing structure, impervious to all but the most serious of attacks. But something as small as a hairline crack, if left unattended, can grow and split the dam wide open given enough time. In 2007, it was discovered that NBA referee Tim Donaghy was betting on games that he himself was officiating, sometimes putting his finger on the scale in playoff games that had championship implications, calling fouls that were iffy at best, and getting star players benched. When he was arrested by the FBI for his ties with the mob, the NBA cracked down on its regulations and practices for referees and put more safeguards in place. These blows to the dams of the NFL and the NBA cracked their facades but were patched up quickly enough so that their legitimacy was never too seriously questioned afterwards. Bad calls still get made, but overall their dams hold. A sports dam of legitimacy breaking is extremely rare, but we do have one case here in America. A dam failure so cataclysmic that the story of its downfall gets more attention than the actual sport itself nowadays.
Oh god, I'm
This
scared.
is NASCAR's dam of legitimacy, and it busted open a long time ago.
What is it? I'm scared.
When a dam fails, oftentimes it's from so many different causes that finding the main one is hard to determine. But with NASCAR, we can point to a specific person at a specific time, September 21st, 2003. That was when Brian France presided over his very first race as NASCAR's CEO, taking the reins over from his father, Bill France Jr., who had taken over for his father, Bill France Sr., making Brian France the third-generation CEO of NASCAR.
Wow.
Brian's first act as CEO was actually a really good one. He eliminated racing back to the yellow flag. Previously, if a caution for an accident or an unsafe track conditions was thrown, then cars on the track would be scored as they came back to take the yellow flag at the start-finish line. Typically, there was a gentleman's agreement not to pass each other when coming to the line, but as years went by, guys kept pushing the envelope. After all, seeing a bunch of slowing cars that can be passed for position can be a really tempting thing to see just dangling out in front of you. This problem reached a head 1 week prior to the Dover race at Loudon on September 14th, when Dale Jarrett had an accident right at the start-finish line and was unable to get his car restarted, and he had to just sit there in the middle of the track helplessly watching cars scream by at full speed. NASCAR had been using electronic timing and scoring for 10 years up to that point, so it didn't take much to just freeze the field at the moment of caution and instruct drivers to immediately slow down as soon as they saw yellow lights. Again, this was a great decision. And coming 2 years after the death of Dale Earnhardt Sr., I honestly can't believe they didn't do it sooner. Brian seemed at first to be a young but steady hand to guide NASCAR through the 21st century. He had managed short tracks out west well before taking the step up to NASCAR CEO, so he knew all too well the clashes that tend to break out between drivers and promoters. Nextel ushered in a slew of new looks and colors to the sport, and one that came with it was purely of Brian France's creation, the Nextel Chase for the Cup. In 2003, Matt Kenseth had led the point standings pretty much from wire to wire and locked up the championship with a race remaining on the schedule, meaning that he didn't even have to show up to the last race of the season to still walk away with the cup. His points lead was just that monumental. So Brian France proposed and eventually won out on the chase. Now with 10 races to go, the top 10 in points would be locked into a sort of pseudo-playoff bracket, where the regular season points would be reset and the leader at the playoff break would be given 5 points above second, and second place would be given 5 points above third, and so on. This was controversial to say the least when it was announced. It was clear that after a dominant season like what Matt Kenseth had pulled off, NASCAR wanted a closer points finish to drum up interest in the final 10 races. But the main draw were the individual races, they always had been. The championship was still revered to be sure, but the rank-and-file NASCAR fans were more concerned about how their favorite drivers did each week and about going to the next event at their home track. A playoff format for the final 10 races was seen more as a gimmick than anything. And worse, it wasn't even necessary. The 2002 points battle had gone right down to the wire with a late-season four-way slugfest. 1997, 96, and 95 all had tight margins and went to the very last race as well. Playoffs weren't just goofy, they were completely unneeded, was the first crack in NASCAR's Dam of Legitimacy. It would be far from the last. In the short term, however, ratings were up for 2004, and that would continue in 2005. Little did anybody know it at the time, but that was NASCAR's peak in popularity. It would be all downhill from there. But another issue had emerged around this time that was quickly noticed by the NASCAR nation: the phantom debris caution. Through the 90s, NASCAR had one caution for debris on the track every other race, which is perfectly understandable. Sometimes stuff flies out onto the track, and it poses a serious, potentially life-threatening danger when cars are zipping around out there in excess of 200 miles an hour. But in 2004, the number of debris cautions rocketed up to 1.5 per race. And then in 2005, it went all the way up to 2.5 per race. And to make matters worse, TV crews would never even show the debris. The commentators would just say debris in turn 2, but evidence of it would never be captured on camera. This is particularly egregious because when a caution is thrown, the field is bunched back up, eliminating whatever cushion the leader had built up over the last 100 laps or so. Throughout the 2000s, phantom debris cautions became so blatant that even my normally stoic grandparents were calling it out as bogus cautions. They would say, "Yep, went green for too long, gotta bunch them back up." And this was the next big blow to the dam. NASCAR was no longer content with manipulating the championship for ratings, they were now manipulating individual races. From the beginning, NASCAR has been operated as a family business with the France family firmly at the helm of the ship. Whatever Big Bill France Sr. said back in the day was what got done. No questions asked. It was basically a little mini dictatorship, like most businesses.
Sounds like it.
When a drivers' union was formed in the early 60s, Bill France openly said he would not allow unionized drivers to compete at his tracks, and even threatened to use a pistol to enforce that rule. He eventually banned Curtis Turner and Tim Flock, his two most popular drivers, over the disagreement. And when another union gave him grief in 1969 over safety concerns at its new track Talladega, he caused a falling out amongst the drivers that led to a walkout. And he hand-waved the rules away and let smaller, slower cars start the race instead. His son Bill France Jr. ran NASCAR with a similar iron fist, and had clashes with the Allisons and Darrell Waltrip. Probably his worst call as CEO was allowing Richard Petty's 1983 win at Charlotte to stand, even when Petty's engine was several cubic inches too big, and he had installed illegal tires onto his car. Bill France Jr. did so because this was Petty's 199th win, and he was one win away from 200, and that would make for national headlines. Bill France Jr. loved the prospect of a good story and would ignore rules if that meant he could grow NASCAR's brand.
That's
With
crazy.
a history like this, was it really that surprising that Brian France was given the reins to do whatever he pleased with NASCAR? It was practically a family tradition at this point. But there were drivers who spoke up about the
Surely you can't feel great about that
when
win,
Tony Stewart pointed out the bogus debris cautions and NASCAR was basically playing God, he got fined $100,000 for, quote, actions detrimental to stock car racing. The last race before the playoffs began, Clint Boyer intentionally spun himself out to cause a caution so the field would be bunched back up and give his teammate Martin Truex a better shot at sneaking his way into the top 12. To add fuel to the fire, Brian Vickers, Truex's other teammate, pitted coming to take the green to give Truex just one more spot to help him out. When NASCAR heard the radio traffic between the teams that confirmed that this was planned, they ousted Truex from the chase, fined the teams for record-setting amounts of money, and put the 13th driver in the standings, Jeff Gordon, into the chase to take Truex's spot.
That's crazy.
However, there was no rule on the books to stop drivers from manipulating races to game the playoff system.
My brain can't comprehend
NASCAR
all of this,
itself had been manipulating races for a decade up to this point, so the penalty was completely arbitrary. Yet another crack in the dam. Now the championship format was a total crapshoot. A good first 26 races would be all for naught if you just had 1 or 2 DNFs in the final 10 races. It was clear what NASCAR wanted, a Game 7 moment, a race for all the marbles at the end of the year that would draw in big crowds, but that never happened. Matt Kenseth, the man who won the 2003 championship in dominating fashion that created the trigger for this whole series of events, is having a great season. He's the odds-on favorite to win the Cup at season's end. But at Kansas, another driver who has already advanced to the next round of the playoffs is right behind him, Joey Logano. Knowing that taking the win from Kenseth would bolster his chances at winning the Cup, Joey went full send on Kenseth and wrecked him going into turn 1. Well, this is clearly championship manipulation, right? It's clear what Joey did, but no. The win stands, and Brian France himself says in an interview that he thinks what Joey did was a smart move to deny Kenseth the win. That sounds an awful lot like favoritism from the CEO of the sport. A few races later, after Kenseth was eliminated from the playoffs, he would take an opportunity to make sure Joey wouldn't win the title. Same as Joey did to him. He wrecks Joey at Martinsville, effectively making sure that they both would end up without a championship. For this, Matt Kenseth was suspended for 2 races while Joey was allowed to continue to compete. Wait, what? Kenseth gets a penalty for Martinsville, but Joey doesn't get one for Kansas?
Yeah,
that doesn't even make sense.
No.
Plus, that same year in the playoffs, Kevin Harvick caused a caution coming to take the green flag at the end of a race at Talladega. Because his car had some sort of mechanical issue, he was unable to maintain race speed. So he causes a wreck on purpose, and that yellow would be the end of the race, and he'd limp into the next round of the playoffs. So wait, Spingate was race manipulation, but this wasn't? What gives? Now, at the final race at Homestead in 2016 with 25 to go, Carl Edwards makes a pass on fellow Final Four driver Kyle Busch to take the second spot. Kyle Larson is the leader and about 3 seconds ahead of Carl, but he's not in the Final Four, so Carl would be the champion so long as nothing stupid happens. And then something stupid happened. With 15 to go, a caution was thrown for Dylan Lupton, who had blown a left rear tire going down the backstretch. But to his credit, he immediately pulled to the apron and didn't get debris on the racing surface. But NASCAR, seeing an opportunity to create one of those Game 7 moments, threw the caution anyway to bunch the field back up. When the race was resumed, the inevitable happened.
The restart zone. Kyle Larson, the outside. Carl Edwards on the inside. Green flag back in the air. They're blocking. Good go down low. Carl Edwards into the wall. He got tagged by the 22.
Really?
Big hits by the 19. And the caution comes back out again.
What?
Carl Edwards and Joey Logano, both going for a cup, wrecked each other and about half the field in an embarrassingly stupid restart. Jimmy Johnson, who had just barely limped into the Final Four with an average finish of 14, claimed the cup pretty much by default from there. The drivers don't want to drive anymore. Because to anybody paying attention, it is clear that this is no longer a legitimate
It's just
sport.
cheating.
There is far too much interference
Everyone's
from the
cheating
sanctioning
left,
body
right,
to
and
claim
center.
that. NASCAR is trying to manufacture entertainment instead of letting the sport play out naturally. Newer guys will come up through the ranks quickly, and their parents are either millionaires or they have connections with sponsors who will bankroll them. And teams looking for any monetary edge they can get will sign these drivers, not because they've proven that they're the best by working their way up the rungs of the ladder system, but because they bring home the bacon to fund the rest of the organization. Some of these drivers are pretty good, some are mediocre, and they're taking up more and more seats with each passing year. And now I have to ask myself the question, are we actually watching the best stock car drivers in the country or just the ones with the deepest pockets? I don't know anymore. And yes, paid drivers exist in Formula One and other series, but they don't have all these other problems threatening the integrity of their dams, so they're able to manage. But NASCAR, in the ultimate admission that they had been manufacturing debris cautions all along, in 2017 they announced they would have stage cautions. At predetermined points of a race, they would throw the yellow flag and halt the race just so they could bunch the field back up. And wouldn't you know it, debris cautions magically went away after that. Scroll down through the comments on any NASCAR video about the good old days, and you will find people saying that they stopped watching, and by far and away the biggest reason they give is something along the lines of, I just can't take NASCAR's BS anymore. NASCAR for a long time thought they could pull the wool over our eyes and piss down our backs and tell us it was raining, but after 2 decades of this, people have overwhelmingly just left the sport. There were a lot of factors at play, but I think this is the #1 reason by far, a lack of legitimacy. Now I know there are some people, mostly fans on the younger side, who like the playoffs and are probably down in the comments telling me to get over it, or if you don't like it, then don't watch. But that's the problem. People aren't watching anymore. There is one thing that has always threatened to kill NASCAR right from day one. It was the massive egos of the people in charge. And through its nepotistic command structure, that is unlikely to go away, and the dam will most likely not be rebuilt anytime in the foreseeable future.
Oh dear. Okay, what the hell? I didn't know any of that, and that has just changed my whole outlook on NASCAR. I wouldn't say in a bad way, but it's like opened up my eyes to what's actually going on. But I want to know though, like people who are like watching my videos and stuff that watch NASCAR, how do you guys feel about the playoffs? Because I can't really give an opinion on it because I've literally only just started watching NASCAR. So it doesn't really make any difference to me. Other than now watching this video, I'm like, oh, that's a bit controversial. So yeah, I want to know what you guys think about the playoffs in the comments, whether you think it's a good thing or not, and whether they should get rid of them. But I did very much enjoy that. So with that being said, if you have any other videos that you'd like me to react to, drop them in the comments. I'm working my way through everybody's suggestions at the moment. If you want to check out any of my other socials, they are all linked down below. And if you want to become a member on this channel and receive exclusive perks, you can also do that by hitting the join button down below. But I hope you enjoyed today's reaction, and I will catch you next time for the next one. Bye!